On her first day at the NATO camp, Anna Carter was called a paper soldier, a theory-bound officer from some military archive. A trainee laughed and threw a map binder in her face. "Go sketch your sandbox battles, sweetheart." But moments later, a senior officer froze when he caught sight of the broken sword tattoo with 7 etched lines beneath her wrist. He quietly asked Warrior number 42, from Black Ridge 0, and the entire training camp fell silent. Anna stood there, her brown hair loosely draped over her shoulders, her calm expression unchanged. She didn't flinch when the binder hit her chest and fell to the ground. The trainee, a tall German guy with a buzz cut and a smug grin, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, waiting for her to react. The room buzzed with snickers from the others, young elite soldiers from across Europe, all handpicked for this joint NATO training camp. They saw her plain uniform, her lack of makeup, the way she kept her hands folded in front of her. To them, she looked like she'd wandered in from a clerical job, not a battlefield. But Anna didn't pick up the binder. She didn't look at the German guy. She just stepped forward, her boots soft on the concrete floor, and took a seat at the back of the room. The laughter died down, but the whispers didn't. "Who let her in here?" Someone muttered. "She's going to wash out by lunch." The classroom smelled like chalk dust and coffee. Maps and charts covered the walls, pinned up with thumbtacks. The instructor, a grizzled British colonel with a scar across his chin, cleared his throat and started the lesson. Tactical formations, urban combat. Anna sat quietly, her notebook open, her pen moving in slow, deliberate strokes. The German guy kept glancing back at her, smirking, whispering to the guy next to him. Every now and then, someone else would join in, tossing out a jab loud enough for her to hear. "Bet she's never held a rifle. Probably here to take notes for the real soldiers." Anna's face didn't change. She kept writing, her eyes on the page like she was alone in the room. But there was a moment, just a flicker, when her pen stopped. The German guy had leaned over to a French trainee, a wiry kid with a loud laugh, and said, "Look at her, man. She's probably lost without a stapler." Anna's hand paused over her notebook. She looked up, not at them, but at the map on the wall, a topographic spread of a fictional war zone. Her eyes traced the ridges and valleys, and for a second, her lips pressed together like she was holding something back. Then she went back to writing. Outside during a break, the air was sharp with the scent of pine and diesel. Anna leaned against a wall near the water station, sipping from a canteen. A Swedish trainee, lanky with a cruel smirk and pale eyes, spotted her and sauntered over. "Hey, Paper Carter, you forgot your typewriter." He grabbed a plastic cup, filled it with water, and flung it at her. The water splashed across her uniform, soaking her chest and dripping onto her boots. The group roared with laughter, some doubling over others, slapping the Swedish guy's back. Anna stood there, water trickling down her sleeve, her face still. She didn't wipe it off. She didn't look at them. She screwed the cap back on her canteen, her fingers steady, and walked toward the barracks, her boots squelching slightly. The Swedish guy shouted after her, "Go file some papers, sweetheart." The laughter chased her, but she didn't turn back. A faint breeze stirred her hair as she disappeared around the corner, her silhouette sharp against the gray barracks wall. "Hey, real quick, before we go any further, can you do me a favor? Grab your phone, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to the channel. It means a lot, and it keeps us going, sharing stories like Anna's. Stories about people who get counted out but keep standing. All right, let's get back to it. The humiliation didn't stop at the binder or the water. By lunch, the nickname Paper Carter had spread through the camp like wildfire. It followed her to the mess hall, where she sat alone at a corner table, a tray of untouched food in front of her. The German trainee, his name was Klaus, strode by with a group, his tray clattering as he set it down nearby. "Paper Carter," he called loud enough for the whole room to hear. "You here to photocopy maps or what?" The others laughed, some banging their fists on the table. A British guy, all sharp cheekbones and polished boots, chimed in. No, she's here to file our reports. Keep the desk warm for us." Anna didn't look up. She picked up her fork, speared a piece of chicken, and ate slowly like she hadn't heard a word. Klaus leaned over his table, his voice carrying, "Seriously, who let you in? This is a combat camp, not a library." A few trainees glanced at Anna, waiting for her to snap back. She didn't. She set her fork down, wiped her hands on a napkin, and stood. Her chair scraped against the floor, the only sound in the sudden quiet. She picked up her tray, walked to the dish return, and left without a glance. Later that day, during a navigation drill in the dense forest surrounding the camp, Anna was paired with a Dutch trainee named Lars, a broad guy with a loud voice and a habit of talking over everyone. The task was to lead their squad to a checkpoint using only a compass and a map. Lars snatched the map from Anna's hands before she could unfold it. "I'll handle this," he said, grinning at the others. "Don't want Paper Carter getting us lost in her sketchbook." The squad laughed, following Lars as he marched ahead, barking directions. Anna trailed behind her, compass in hand, her eyes scanning the trees. Half an hour in, Lars stopped, his face red, the map crumpled in his fists. They were nowhere near the checkpoint. The squad groaned, blaming Anna for not speaking up. Lars turned on her, jabbing a finger in her face. "You're useless out here, Carter. Go back to your desk." Anna looked at him, then at the compass. "Turn left 300 meters, she said, her voice flat. Lars scoffed but followed her lead. In 10 minutes, they reached the checkpoint exactly where Anna said it would be. The instructor nodded at her, but Lars just muttered dumb luck and stormed off, his pride stinging more than the sweat in his eyes. The navigation drill didn't slow the mockery. The next morning, during a gear inspection, a Polish trainee named Dominik Stocky with a permanent sneer decided to make a spectacle. He grabbed Anna's rucksack from the lineup and dumped its contents onto the ground: socks, a flashlight, a folded map spilling into the dirt. "Let's see what Paper Carter's got," he said, kicking the map with his boot. The other trainees crowded around, laughing, as Dominik held up her plain water bottle like it was a trophy. "Look at this. No style, no nothing. You shop at the poor store, Carter." Anna knelt to gather her things, her hands steady, but her jaw tightened as Dominik stepped on the map, grinding it into the mud. "Oops," he said, smirking. "Guess you'll need a new sketchbook." She didn't answer. She picked up each item, wiped the mud off the map, and packed it back without a word. The instructor saw but said nothing, just called for the next inspection. Dominik walked away, high-fiving Klaus, leaving Anna alone in the dirt, her silhouette small but unyielding against the morning sun. That afternoon, the camp moved to a combat simulation, a war game in a mock village on the edge of the training grounds. Anna was assigned to rear command for the blue team. Klaus on the red team laughed when he heard, "Rear command. She's gonna get us all killed from her desk." The blue team wasn't thrilled either. A Spanish trainee, stocky and serious, muttered, "Great, we're stuck with the secretary." Anna took her position in the command tent, a radio headset on a map spread out. The instructor handed her a clipboard. "Don't screw this up," he said, no faith in his voice. The simulation started and it was chaos. The red team moved fast, pinning blue's forward units in a crossfire. The Spanish guy shouted into his radio, demanding backup. The blue team's commander, a Norwegian with a blonde buzz cut, barked orders that weren't working. Anna marked positions with a pencil, her movements quick but calm. She spoke into the radio, her voice steady. "Alpha squad, pull back to the east alley. Bravo, flank north through the market. Charlie, hold the fountain." The Norwegian hesitated, then nodded. "Do it," he said. In under 3 minutes it was over. Anna's plan had redirected blue's forces into the red team's blind spot. Alpha caught Klaus's unit in a pincer. Bravo swept through the market and Charlie held the line. The red team was wiped out. The instructor blew his whistle, ending the sim. The blue team cheered, but the Norwegian turned to Anna, stunned. "Where'd you learn that?" he asked. Anna set the clipboard down. "In the woods," she said. "With no map." Klaus, covered in sweat and red paint, glared at her from across the field. During the debrief, the instructor pulled up the simulation's data on a screen. Every move Anna made, every radio call, every adjustment was logged. The screen showed her plan's efficiency: 98% success rate, 0 friendly losses. The room went quiet. The Spanish trainee who'd called her a secretary stared at the floor. The instructor looked at Anna and said, "I've only seen that kind of precision once before." He didn't say where, but his eyes lingered on her wrist where the tattoo lay hidden beneath her sleeve. The victory didn't stop the mocking. It made it worse, like her skill was a personal offense. By the next morning, Paper Carter had a new edge laced with resentment. The French trainee Pierre cornered her outside the barracks, his wiry frame blocking her path. "Nice trick yesterday," he said, his smile a sneer. "But paper skills won't save you in the field. How many combat hours you got?" "0. You just role-play war." A few others chuckled, egging him on. Pierre picked up a training manual from a nearby table and tossed it at her. It hit her shoulder and flopped to the ground. "Go draw some more paper, girl," he said. Anna looked at him, her eyes steady, and said, "You talk a lot for someone who died in 10 seconds yesterday." The laughter stopped. Pierre's face reddened, but he didn't have a comeback. Anna stepped around him, her boots crunching on the gravel, and walked away, leaving the manual in the dirt. A few days later, during a night exercise, a team-building drill where squads had to cross a river using ropes and planks, Anna's group turned vicious. A Portuguese trainee, Carla, with a sharp tongue and a fake smile, took charge. She handed out tasks but pointed at Anna and said, "You stay back. We don't need you dropping the planks in the river." The others snickered, following Carla's lead. When Anna stepped forward to help anyway, Carla shoved a plank into her arms hard enough to make her stumble. "Fine, carry it then, paper carter. Don't cry when you fall." The squad laughed as Anna carried the heavy plank alone, her boots slipping in the mud. Halfway across the river, Carla accidentally bumped into her, sending the plank splashing into the water. The squad groaned, blaming Anna. "Nice job," Secretary Carla said, rolling her eyes. Anna climbed back to the bank, soaked and shivering, her uniform clinging to her skin. She didn't respond. She picked up another plank, her hands trembling from the cold, and started again, her eyes fixed on the far bank. The camp's brutality didn't let up. During a logistics drill where trainees had to pack and transport supplies under time pressure, a Belgian trainee named Vincent Tall with a smug grin saw an opportunity. Anna was loading crates onto a truck, her movements quick and precise. Vincent walked over, pretending to help, and accidentally dropped a crate at her feet. It split open, spilling bandages and ration packs into the dirt. "Oh, sorry, paper carter," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Guess you're not cut out for heavy lifting." The other trainees laughed, some kicking the spilled supplies further into the mud. Vincent leaned in, his voice low. "Why don't you stick to paperwork? Leave the real work to us." Anna knelt to salvage what she could, her hands covered in grime. She didn't look at Vincent, didn't acknowledge the laughter. She just packed the unbroken supplies back into the crate, her movements deliberate, and carried it to the truck. The instructor, watching from a distance, shook his head but didn't intervene. But the next morning, during a survival training session, Anna turned the tables. The task was to build a shelter and start a fire in under an hour using only what was available in the forest. The trainees were split into pairs, and Anna was paired with Vincent. He scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Great, I'm stuck with the desk jockey." He spent most of the time complaining, tossing sticks into a pile, while Anna worked quietly, weaving branches into a frame. Anna took it from his hands without a word, struck it once, and had a flame going in seconds. The shelter she'd built held firm against the wind while Vincent's pile of sticks collapsed. The instructor walked by, inspecting each team's work. He stopped at Anna's shelter, tested its frame, and nodded. "This'll last a week," he said. He glanced at Vincent, then at Anna. "You taught yourself this?" Anna shrugged. "I've had practice." The instructor's eyes flicked to her wrist, but he didn't say more. Vincent's face burned, but he stayed quiet. The camp's schedule was grueling drills at dawn, strategy sessions all day, physical training until dusk. Anna kept to herself, always at the back, always quiet. She ran the obstacle course faster than most, her movements precise like she'd done it 1,000 times. She disassembled her rifle in under a minute, her fingers steady. The instructors noticed, but the trainees didn't care. They'd mock her in passing, tossing out lines like, "Don't trip over your pencil, Carter," or "You gonna strategize your way out of a real fight?" She never answered. She'd keep moving, tying her boots, adjusting her gear, her face unreadable. One evening during downtime, she was cleaning her boots when a trainee dropped a crumpled paper ball at her feet. It was a caricature drawn in marker, showing her as a crying girl with a pencil and a broken sword. The group nearby burst out laughing, pointing and jeering. Anna picked it up, looked at it for a second, then folded it neatly and tucked it into her pocket. She went back to cleaning her boots, her hands steady, but her jaw was tight, the only sign of the weight she carried. During a live fire exercise the following week, Anna was assigned to a support role, spotting for a team of shooters. The team's leader, a Turkish trainee named Amir, all swagger and loud bravado, made a point of humiliating her. "Spotting. Really?" he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "What's next, Carter? You gonna polish our rifles?" He handed her a pair of binoculars and shoved her toward the observation post. "Don't mess this up, paper girl. Real soldiers are counting on you." The team laughed, following Amir to the firing line. Anna took her position, her binoculars raised, calling out targets with calm precision. Every shot hit its mark thanks to her calls. When the exercise ended, the instructor praised the team's accuracy but didn't mention Anna. Amir took the credit, slapping his teammates' backs. Anna lowered her binoculars, her face blank, and walked back to the barracks alone, the wind carrying the sound of their celebration behind her. But during the next strategy session, something shifted. The instructor asked for volunteers to present a defensive plan for a hypothetical urban siege. Nobody raised their hand except Anna. She walked to the front, her notebook in hand, and laid out a plan: choke points, resource allocation, civilian evacuation routes. It was airtight, every detail accounted for. The room was silent as she spoke, her voice steady, her eyes on the map. When she finished, the instructor nodded slowly. "That's textbook," he said. "Better than textbook." He turned to the class. "Anyone want to critique it?" Nobody spoke. Then from the back, a quiet voice, another instructor, one who'd been observing silently, said, "I saw that exact strategy work once. In a place nobody talks about." He glanced at Anna's wrist, then looked away. The trainees shifted in their seats, uneasy, but nobody said a word. The camp's cruelty peaked during a physical training session a few days later. A Greek trainee named Sophia, lean and fiercely competitive, organized a relay race and made sure Anna was on her team. "Let's see if Paper Carter can keep up," Sophia said, her smile sharp. The race was brutal, sprinting, crawling under barbed wire, carrying sandbags. Sophia set a punishing pace, shouting at Anna to move faster even when she was ahead. At the sandbag carry, Sophia tripped and knocked Anna's bag into the dirt, forcing her to start over. The team lost, and Sophia blamed Anna in front of everyone. "You're dead weight, Carter," she said, spitting on the ground. "Go back to your desk." Anna picked up the sandbag, her hands caked with dirt, and carried it to the finish line anyway, long after the race was over. The other teams watched, some laughing, some looking away. Sophia high-fived her friends, but her eyes darted to Anna like she was waiting for a crack that never came. The next big test was a sniper challenge in a simulated blizzard. The camp's training field was rigged with fans and fake snow, the wind gusting hard. The task hit 5 moving targets at 700 meters in under 12 seconds. Klaus hit 3, cursing, as he missed the last 2. Pierre managed 4, his hands shaking. When Anna's name was called, the group groaned. "She's gonna choke," Pierre said. Anna stepped to the firing line, her rifle slung over her shoulder. She adjusted her stance, her movement smooth. The wind howled, kicking up snow. She raised the rifle, her breathing slow, and fired. 5 shots. 5 hits. The targets dropped, each one dead center. The timer read 11. 4 seconds. The instructor stared at the screen, his mouth half open. A British guy whispered, "That's the Black Ridge, perfect score." Thought they scrapped that test in 2019. Anna lowered her rifle and said, "I'm used to the wind," then walked back to her spot. During a maintenance drill the following day, Anna was tasked with inspecting a row of rifles for defects. She worked methodically, her hands moving over each weapon with care. A group of trainees led by a Romanian named Dragos, short but muscular with a loud laugh, saw her and decided to have fun. Dragos grabbed one of the rifles she'd already checked and loosened a screw in the trigger guard just enough to make it rattle. "Hey, Paper Carter, you missed something," he said, tossing the rifle back onto the table. The group laughed as Anna picked it up, her fingers finding the loose screw in seconds. She tightened it without a word, but Dragos wasn't done. He leaned over, his breath hot on her neck, and said, "You're not fooling anyone, Carter. You're just playing soldier until they kick you out." The others jeered, one mimicking her movements with exaggerated slowness. Anna set the rifle down, her eyes meeting Dragos's for a split second. "Check your own gear," she said, her voice low. "You might need it." She turned back to her work, but the air felt heavier, the laughter a little forced. That afternoon, during a field exercise, Dragos's rifle jammed during a critical moment, leaving his squad exposed. The instructor called a halt, inspecting the weapon. The same screw Dragos had tampered with was missing entirely. Anna had removed it after his stunt, knowing it would fail under pressure. The instructor chewed Dragos out in front of everyone, his face red with anger. "You call yourself a soldier?" He barked. Dragos shot Anna a look, but she was already moving to the next task, her face blank. The squad whispered among themselves, some glancing at her with new respect, others with unease. The instructor handed Dragos a replacement rifle and said, "Learn from this or you're out." Anna didn't look back, but her hands moved a little faster, her focus sharper, like she'd shed a weight she'd been carrying. The whispers about Black Ridge started then floating through the camp like smoke. The trainees didn't know much, just that it was a mission that didn't exist, a bloodbath with no survivors. Or so they thought. But the mockery didn't stop, it got meaner, like her skill was a threat. During a hand-to-hand combat drill, an Italian trainee named Marco grabbed her wrist. He was broad-shouldered with a dragon tattoo snaking up his arm. "What's this?" he said, holding her wrist up. "A broken sword?" "Cringe. You cosplaying some video game." The group laughed, circling closer. "I've got a dragon," Marco said, flexing. "Doesn't make me a killer." Anna pulled her wrist back, sharp but controlled. She stepped into the sparring stance, her eyes locked on his. Marco swung a sloppy punch she dodged. She countered with a jab to his chest, knocking the wind out of him. He stumbled, gasping, and the laughter died. Next, Anna set her voice flat. One evening in the armory, Anna was checking her rifle's scope, the room quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Klaus walked in with the group, his eyes narrowing when he saw her. He picked up a cleaning rag and threw it at her, hitting her in the face. "Clean my rifle while you're at it." "Paper Carter," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. The others laughed, one mimicking a maid's curtsy. Anna caught the rag before it fell, folded it neatly, and set it on the table. She looked at Klaus, her eyes steady, and said, "I don't clean up other people's messes." She went back to her scope, her knuckles white. Klaus opened his mouth, then closed it, his face darkening. The group left, but not before one knocked over a stack of ammo boxes near her, leaving them scattered. Anna waited until they were gone, then knelt to pick them up, her movement slow, like she was carrying more than just the boxes. The next day, during a tactical review, a retired general visited the camp, a man with a limp and a chest full of medals. He was there to observe, but he ended up watching Anna. She was presenting a counter-ambush plan, her voice calm, her markers moving across the board with precision. The general interrupted, pointing at her wrist. "That tattoo," he said, his voice rough. "I've seen it before. Only one unit used that mark." The room froze. He didn't say Black Ridge, but he didn't have to. The trainees looked at each other, then at Anna, who didn't flinch. She finished her presentation, sat down, and folded her hands. The general leaned over to the instructor and whispered something. The instructor's face changed, and he dismissed the class early. As Anna left, the general watched her go, his hand touching an old scar on his neck, his eyes distant like he was seeing something no one else could. Major Christopher Holt walked through the camp that afternoon, his boots crunching on the gravel. He was a tall man, late 40s, with gray at his temples. He'd been a CIA strategic advisor, a man who dealt in secrets. Passing the training field, he glanced at Anna, who was cleaning her rifle. His eyes caught her wrist, the broken sword, the 7 etched lines. He stopped, his breath catching. "Manual kill count," he muttered. "Ghost Ops use that system?" He stepped closer, his voice low. "Warrior number 42, from Black Ridge 0. Anna looked up, her hands still on the rifle. She didn't nod, didn't speak. She held his gaze, and something passed between them, recognition maybe, or something heavier. Holt stepped back and walked away, his shoulders a little stiffer, like he'd just carried something new. The camp's atmosphere shifted, but not in Anna's favor. The trainees sensed something was off, and their mockery turned desperate, like they needed to prove she was nothing. During a strategy session, a training officer, a barrel-chested man with a scowl, called her out. "Carter," he barked. "You refuse to disclose your background or report your chain of command. What are you hiding?" Anna stood, her hands at her sides. "Nothing you need to know, sir." The officer's face darkened. "I won't tolerate insubordination," he shouted. "Leave this camp by 1800s or face disciplinary action." The room buzzed with sneers. Pierre whispered to Klaus, "Scared her cosplay's going to get exposed." Anna sat back down, her notebook, open, her pen in her hand, her eyes steady despite the weight of the room. The officer's threat hung over the camp all day. Trainees whispered about it during drills, during meals, during downtime. "She's done," they said. "Paper Carter's out." Anna didn't pack her bags. She didn't argue. She kept going, running the course, cleaning her gear, sitting at the back of every room. At one point, she paused outside the barracks, her eyes catching on a patch of dirt where a group had scrawled "Paper Soldier" with a stick. She stared at it, her jaw tight, then stepped over it and kept walking. That evening, during a communications drill, a Finnish trainee named Hannah, with a cold smile and a reputation for cutting remarks, took it further. Anna was testing a radio set, her headset on, when Hannah walked over and yanked the cord out, sending static screeching through the speakers. Oops, Hannah said, smirking. Didn't see you there, paper carter. You're so good at blending into the background. The group laughed, some mimicking the static sound. Anna reconnected the cord, adjusted the frequency, and said, "Next time, look where you're going." Her voice was calm, but her hand lingered on the radio, her fingers tight. The next morning, during a signals exercise, Hannah's radio failed during a critical relay, cutting her squad off from command. The instructor traced the issue to a tampered frequency, setting someone had dialed it off by a single notch. Hannah's face went pale as the instructor tore into her, her squad glaring at her for the mistake. Anna, standing nearby, tested her own radio, her signal clear and strong. The instructor glanced at her, then at Hannah, and said, "Attention to detail saves lives. Learn it." Hannah didn't look at Anna, but her hands shook as she reset her radio. The squad whispered, some casting sidelong glances at Anna, who was already moving to the next task, her headset still on, her focus unbroken. That afternoon, a helicopter landed in the central courtyard, kicking up dust. Special forces stepped out, flanking the Minister of Defense, a man in a crisp suit. The camp froze. The minister strode toward Holt, handing him a sealed dossier. Holt opened it, his eyes scanning the pages. His hands tightened on the file. The minister spoke, his voice carrying, "Special Advisor Sergeant Anna Carter, sole survivor of a classified mission terminated in 2019. Effective immediately, she will train your entire unit." The camp went silent. Anna stepped forward, her uniform plain, her hair loose. She adjusted her sleeve, covering the tattoo, and looked at the minister. He nodded once. She turned to the trainees, her eyes sweeping over Klaus, Pierre, Marco, all of them. "Lesson 1, she said, her voice quiet. "Never laugh at someone with a broken sword. It means they kept killing, even after the blade snapped." A faint smile touched her lips, not smug, just knowing. The fallout was swift. Klaus was called into the command office that evening. By morning he was gone, his bunk empty, his name scrubbed. Word spread he'd been reassigned to a desk job in Berlin. His career stalled. Pierre's mocking caught up with him too. A video of him tossing the manual at Anna leaked online. The French military pulled him from the program, his social media locked down. Marco tried to apologize to Anna, stammering through an excuse. She listened, her face blank, then walked away. His unit dropped him, and he ate alone for the rest of the camp. Sophia lost her sponsorship with a military gear brand after her relay stunt was reported. Carla's river incident earned her a formal reprimand, her record stained. Dominic's gear dumping was caught on camera, and he was sent back to Poland, his file marked unfit for leadership. Vincent's crate-dropping stunt led to a week of latrine duty, his reputation in tatters. Dragos was quietly transferred after his rifle jam, his squad refusing to work with him. Hannah's radio failure cost her a leadership role, her confidence shaken. Anna didn't gloat. She started leading training sessions, her voice calm, her instructions precise. The trainees listened, now their notebooks open. She'd walk through the room, pointing out flaws in their plans, adjusting their stances, her presence undeniable. One day during a break, she sat outside with a cup of coffee. A new trainee sat next to her. "Is it true?" he asked. "Black Ridge 0. Anna took a sip, her eyes on the horizon. "Doesn't matter," she said. "What matters is you don't break when the sword does." Holt watched from a distance, his hands in his pockets. He never brought up the tattoo again, but he'd nod when she passed a sign of respect. The camp ended a month later. Anna left on a quiet morning, her bag slung over her shoulder, her boots crunching on the gravel. Nobody mocked her now. They just watched her go, some with awe, some with shame. She didn't look back. But she'd stood her ground with quiet, unshakable dignity. And in the end, that was enough. Not then. Not now.